Hello everyone and welcome back to Mansfield Ceramics Gallery, where it's actually the eve of our newest opening, our latest opening, with, I like to call him Australia's best kept secret, and that's the ceramic artist Malcolm Greenwood. And the reason I call him Australia's best kept secret in the field of ceramics is because he is so successful as a potter, and yet really, it feels to me as if this is very much now Malcolm's time after many decades of working in the field. So welcome here, Malcolm.
Thanks, Bernie.
It's lovely to have you here with your body of work.
Oh, it's great to be here.
Excellent, excellent. So what I wanted to, I mentioned in my introduction about how successful you are, and you are so incredibly successful. Your work fills many of the major restaurants around Australia. But the body of work that we're opening with tonight is actually, look, I'm so reluctant to say a fine art line or a different line, but it is a move away from your domestic wear. But I think this is something that you've always had. You've always had these two strands of making. Would that be right?
Absolutely. Always had two strands, and the tableware is really the means to put bread on the table and finance my artwork.
Excellent. And also, this is a wood-fired body of work, and this is something, so usually you fire with gas, I know, in the back of your suburban property. But how long have you been firing with wood?
I did my first wood firing in 1980 at Kinka.
Right.
So, but I left it for a long time, and have mainly because I needed to make a living.
Yes.
And it's I think almost impossible to make a living out of selling wood-fired work.
I think that there'll be many wood firers who'd agree with you on that point. I would just also like to talk about, the success of the business side, which is your restaurant wear. And you started off your career, didn't you, I think, as an undergraduate it was a business degree that you first took? Yeah,
so I first did an apprenticeship as a fitter and machinist. I did mechanical engineering at night, and then I left Australia to go to the United States to do a business degree, and that in Massachusetts, and that was ended up only being for about 2 years.
Yes.
And the last semester there, I actually got my hands into clay for the first time.
So I can only assume that firm foundation in business has been extraordinarily helpful to you in building up your ceramics business.
Definitely, and I think the engineering background has also helped because it allows me to make things and probably understand the process of making anything. I've, in my corporate career, been responsible for making everything from microsurgical instruments, sanitary napkins, robots, turbines, and now I'm making things in clay.
Wow, that's excellent. Can I just talk you through, I've been to your studio, but can I talk to you, it's modest, it's not a huge workshop, but your output is phenomenal. Can I ask you to talk through the numbers that you would, let's go for a week, over a working week. What would you churn out from your studio?
Well, the studio is like a 1.5 car garage. Annually, I go through about 6 tons of porcelain, making about 10 to 15,000 pieces a year.
Wow.
I've got basically one person helping for 3 days a week, and I'd fire my kiln probably once a week, if not a bit more. A glaze firing.
A glaze firing, yes.
And almost all the work now is only fired once, just raw glazing.
And you are in how many restaurants in Sydney and around?
Well, there's probably about 60 or 70 restaurants around Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, and France.
And would it be fair to say you're a one-man show? You often have an assistant, but really it's you, isn't it, Malcolm, who...
Yeah, I think my assistants, they can do certain work. One person ends up doing most of the packing and shipping, which happens each week. But really, I do all the glazing. And so the work that the assistants can do is quite limited because it's important that the customer is getting my hands on the clay,
Yes.
my work, and there's nobody else that can do it.
Nobody else can do it. That's actually, it is so important when one is, I think, working in production wear. I think especially in the region of the world that we're in, if people are making multiple numbers of anything, there is a tendency these days to go up to Asia, especially China, to have things produced. And you've managed to resist that. I mean, everything is made here in Australia. Do you have a view on that, on multiple editions of things being made in China? That you're prepared to share?
I don't like it because I think it undermines the market for potters in Australia wanting to make a living out of their work to some extent. And I mean, if I wanted to do that, I'd still be back in the corporate world, and I think there'd be a lot more money in making other things other than things in ceramics. So I don't really want to do it. I've been working with my hands ever since I was very small.
Yes.
And I love making things. And now in clay, I love making things that people are going to use.
You've called the show Tactile. What is that about?
I think it's about touching the pot. You know, I think we need to experience everything about a piece, not just looking at it, but touching it. I don't know, feeling it. Feeling the different surfaces, feeling the different glazes.
Yes. It's such a varied show, and it really does show the broad range of your abilities and your interests, quite sculptural pieces, utilitarian pieces, and pieces that are just extraordinarily lovely to sit and meditate on. And I should let our viewers know that we had the pleasure of being part of your firing. You fired these pots up at Morningview in Gulgong in the Fred Olsen racer kiln.
A great privilege, I must say.
Look, we have to say it was a privilege for us, an equal privilege. And the kiln hasn't been used for various and obvious reasons for a few years. And for us, therefore, this work is not just a celebration of you. It goes beyond that. And I think when we come into the gallery, as we have done over the past few days and looked at the body of work, I think for us there is something we can see so much of you as a person in the quite, as we said, varied, the varied forms and shapes and the techniques that you've used. But there is a gentleness about them. There is a sophistication, there is a generosity, and I think they say very much about you, and we're so delighted.
Oh, thank you, Bernie.
To have you here at this gallery. And so we're running this show here over the next month, and we welcome each and every one of you to come and look at this show. Malcolm will also be writing an article for us in our magazine, Ceramics, Art and Perception. But from all of us here to all of you out there, please come and see us in our new space. And we are privileged and delighted that Malcolm Greenwood is our first exhibiting artist. Thank you very much, Malcolm.
Thanks.